specifically what contextual behavioral science tells us about behavior change and why the idea of self-discipline won't work. So I hope that by the end of this speech, every one of you has one or two things that you can take home and apply today to some behavior or habit that you're wanting to change in your life right now. So first I want to start with a story. Let's imagine that we have a mouse or a rat who's running around the floor in here. He's a friendly little guy. He's just doing his own little rat thing, living his best life. He's running over here and exploring. He's running over there cleaning his whiskers. But every 7 minutes on the dot, he runs over to the wall and he smacks the wall with his paw. And then goes on about living his life. 7 minutes pass, he runs back. We're going to watch this for a while, and after a while, we might start wondering, what is wrong with this rat? Why is he doing this? We're going to look at his behavior and wonder if maybe he's neurotic. Maybe he has obsessive compulsive disorder. There's something wrong with this rat. Let's take the same rat with the same behavior and put it in a cage in our laboratory. And this isn't just any cage. This is a special cage that has a button on the wall. And this button is set up so that when the rat pushes the button, a food pellet is delivered. But it only works once every 7 minutes. So the rat learns over time that he can't just sit here and push the button, so he may as well go through his best little rat life and then come back every 7 minutes and hit the button. In this environment, his behavior doesn't look neurotic anymore. In this environment, his behavior makes sense. We are all just rats in a cage. B.F. Skinner, who's considered the founder of modern behaviorism, founded it on the idea that the organism is always correct. We are always making choices in our lives based on moving towards pleasure or away from pain in some way. It's based on our environment. Self-discipline and grit, trying to shame and bully ourselves into changing, can't work because it ignores this idea that the organism is always correct. What we're already doing is correct for our environment in some way. Contextual behavioral science as a field, it's the part of psychology that doesn't look at the organism and say, why don't you change? It doesn't look at the rat, it looks at the cage and says, with curiosity, why are you behaving the way you're behaving? So there's 3 different types of environmental changes that we can make that I want to talk about today. The first is we can change contingencies around the behavior. We can change what happens after the behavior. If you do this, this happens. This is how we teach children. This is, if you eat your vegetables, then you get to eat ice cream. When people talk about self-discipline, this is usually what they're trying to use on themselves, modifying these contingencies. It won't work because at some point, I'm going to say, I'm the adult, and I get to eat ice cream for dinner if I want to because I choose to, and I'm the adult. The person who controls what happens after the behavior cannot be the same person that's trying to change the behavior because you're stuck in this loop. So what does work? You can change the environment to adjust the barriers for the behavior. So you can either increase the barriers that are getting in the way of the behavior that you're trying to stop, or you can decrease behaviors if you're trying to increase the behavior to make it easier. An example would be if I'm wanting to work out every morning, the night before I'm going to set out my shoes. I'm going to set out the clothes I'm going to wear. I'm going to have my iPod already set up with my playlist. I'm going to do everything I can ahead of time to make it so that when I get out of bed, engaging in what I want to do is going to be the easiest and I don't have any excuses. If it's something I'm trying to decrease, I'm going to make those barriers harder to get past. An example that one of my professors gave was he was trying to quit smoking. And so rather than tell himself that he wasn't allowed to smoke because that wasn't going to work, he tried that for years and he just said, I can smoke if I want to smoke. He started moving his cigarettes to the back of the car and putting blankets and stuff on top of them so that when he wanted a cigarette, he had to pull over, get out of the car, move all of the stuff, get the package of cigarettes, and then put it all back. And over time, it became less and less worth it. The third way to adjust the environment to change our behavior that I want to talk about, and the one that I find the most interesting, is called enclosed cognition. In 2012, there were two researchers, Adam and Galinsky. They took a group of people and they divided these adults into 3 different groups. They were going to have them take a test. This test measured attention and focus. With the first group, as every participant walked in, they had a lab coat hanging up next to them. The researchers told the participants, this is a doctor's coat, and then they had them take the test. The next group, they came in, the researchers had them put the coat on, but told them this is a painter's coat you're wearing, and had them take the test. The third group, they had put the coat on, but this time they told them this is a doctor's coat that you are wearing. The group that was wearing the doctor's coat, even though it was the same coat in all groups, performed significantly better than the other two. The other two didn't show any statistical difference from the control group. Adam and Galinsky called this in-clothes cognition, or the idea that what we put on changes how we perceive ourselves, and therefore the behaviors that we are likely to engage in. We all do this kind of automatically anyways. When somebody is going through a big life change, they might cut their hair, just sort of reinvent themselves. When somebody is going after a new job, they'll start dressing the part. We do it without necessarily thinking about it. Bigger organizations will use the idea of enclothed cognition intentionally. You see this with military uniforms that signify something when you put them on, or with religious orders where when you put on the uniform or the habit, it signifies something. We can use this concept intentionally if it's a behavior that has significant meaning to us, to try to put on something that I am the person that engages in this behavior now. So for the best chances of actually changing behavior, we use all 3. We, in some way, step in to become the person who does or doesn't do this thing that we're trying to change. We adjust the barriers to make it easier to be the person that we want to be. And then we can throw in a reward on top of it just because we want the ice cream and it's fun. So if you take away nothing else from my talk right now, I hope it is this: that change isn't about self-discipline, grit, or bullying or shaming yourself. It won't work because it ignores the primary principle of behavior, which is that the organism is always correct. You are already correct. So what does work is looking at your environment, leaning in with curiosity and patience for yourself, and trying to figure out why does the behavior that you're engaging in make sense right now, and what can you change? Because at the end of the day, we are all rats in our own cage. Instead of shaming the rat, we just need to change the cage. Thank you.